experience that we have with this. 2 words about myself. I'm analyst, so I am looking at power markets. So you all use electricity at home. We're trying to forecast the prices for electricity for tomorrow, but also next week or the next years. So we use a lot of technologies to do this, but at the end, I don't care how I produce these prices. I just want to have good outputs. And I think this differentiates a bit. ICIS, maybe 2 words about ICIS. ICIS is a data intelligence provider. We're also part of RELX. What our background is that we used to do a lot of reporting with editors around the globe, looking at energy markets, putting this together, writing reports about this, sending this to customers. And over time, we got more and more into analytics. We try to create a forward-looking view. Yeah, that's our journey. So just 4 points on the agenda, a bit of an introduction and contradicting studies about AI and how they use the history and what is our journey about where we applied AI at ICS. And then I come into the most interesting part, I guess, which is the use cases, 5 of them, what works, what doesn't, and what can we learn from this. All right. Actually, I looked at MIT and checked what they're saying about AI. And one study said 95% of organizations are getting 0 return from AI despite a 30 to 40 billion investment to Gen AI. I think that's exactly the opposite of what's basically told here in all the presentations. When you look at the other side, another study by MIT is Gen AI can improve a high-skilled worker's performance by nearly 40% compared to its workers who don't use it. So, bit contradicting already. I would say in our team, in our company, we have a lot of high-skilled workers, so we are more on the right side, so we can see how we have efficiency gains with AI. But it's quite interesting what different research studies say about this. And believe me, we pay a lot to all these companies there, Databricks, Google, Snowflake, Microsoft, and many more. So we really try out stuff. Yeah, it's interesting. So a few words about our history. I actually, when I thought about this, I realized we all have iPhones in the company. So Siri is definitely maybe the first use case of AI in our company, 2011. But in yellow, you see the products we actually launched that use some form of AI. And already in 2015, we had the first one, which is our forecast based on machine learning and neural networks. So I really want to show that we are not like fall behind, and it's really that we don't know how to use these technologies. We really start from the beginning and try to integrate them as early as possible. 2022, we heard already in November, end of 22, ChatGPT was launched. Other LLMs were following. And then we reacted very fast because we got our systems ready to launch our own, basically chat assistant in 2024 already. It's called Ask ICS. It helps to search our own data with the advantage we cleaned our data before these new technologies came up. So our data was ready to be read by the new LLMs and could answer then customers. I will go a bit deeper later. Yeah, and then more technologies came up and we tried them and so on. So I dive directly into the first use case. That's a very old one, 2015. It started because we hired someone from university who worked with neural networks and how they can be used in forecasting. And we also integrate this. And at that time, when we launched the product that used machine learning, it was more like on a marketing side. All the customers really liked it. The management really liked it that we worked with this. But the use was not that big. However, over time, the use increased. And what you see on the right is when you forecast power prices, you have a lot of historical data. You need solar radiation, you need wind speed, and all this data is available for 30, 40 years. And this creates a very good basis for these machine learning tools. And this also applies for everything else. When you have a lot of data, when you have good data, then you normally can make something out of this. And we used this data at that time to create a forecast, but we also had competing models. So we could test very easily how good machine learning is in comparison to existing tools. Example, for tomorrow, the power price, let's say it's 40 euros per megawatt hour. And So we look now back, the price was 40 euros, and one model forecasted 42 euros, and maybe the neural network forecasted 45 euros. So it's further away from the price. And if you test this in the back testing, you can see how the performance increased over time. And that's also a big difference to the LLMs, where it's hard to understand how big is now the advantage in comparison to the old methods you use. Anyway, over time, it really worked better and better. We integrated the neural networks much more, and they improved over time. So this is also something you need to keep working on these tools, and then they help you getting better. Also interesting, maybe a last word about this, the methods we use there in forecasting. We launched the product before the scientific paper was actually published, which was published 1 or 2 years later because the publishing process took time, so that was quite nice. Now 2 words about our chatbot, Ask ICIS. We launched this very quickly. As I said, 2022, ChatGPT came out, and we launched this. I already said we were able to launch this very quickly because we had clean up data, we had it structured, we had it in a data lake, so that was a good job there. Yeah, and we had the challenge, we had a lot of data behind the paywall, and we don't want to give this out for free, so we have to use something that reads our own data but doesn't give it out. I asked, for example, our chatbot, what's the impact of an AI on power prices? And what it does is it checks all our data, all the reports we have written so far, and obviously it found something, and then it answered very well. The energy demand to run all these systems, the data centers, it's very high, and that's basically the biggest impact on power prices. And it refers then to a report we have once written. The report is forward-looking at the time, but it can very easily conclude from different reports, different sources, and put this information together. So it's nice for the customers if they look for something, want to have it integrated, want to connect the dots, but it does not do the complete new stuff. Now the question is this useful or is this not useful? And it's much more difficult to understand this. Before in the use case, the neural networks, I could say exactly on the cent how strong the improvement is, or if it's useful or not. In this case, it's hard to say. We need to ask the customers, is this helpful? Do you go to the original reports? So you have to go through all these processes to understand it. Are they willing to pay more having this or not? Yeah, these are a lot of challenges and questions. And yeah, to the next use case. LLMs are like a person with a talent for language but not for math. So this is a use case where we struggled a bit, and I think it didn't work perfectly well in the beginning especially. So you see the picture on the right. So is this a misuse or not, using a Ferrari to put a caravan on top? Maybe it looks a bit fancy and nice, but yeah. People who maybe have a Ferrari think that's maybe not the best use case. However, what we try to do is we try to use the large language models to collect structured data in tables. I can give an example. We were looking for hydrogen projects across Europe. We wanted to have a table with all the hydrogen projects by name. We wanted to get the start date, when the final investment decision is taking place, when what the expected start date of the project is, in which phase the product is, who owns the product, the project. Yeah, it's basically we wanted to have 110 columns of information about the project. The capacity, the number plate capacity, which electricity is feeding the hydrogen production, it's a lot of special information, the load factors, and things maybe that we need expert knowledge. And our journey was that we basically first search for all the projects, then we run a lot of Google searches to get all articles related to each project, and then we transferred these articles to a large language model to search for this information. And yeah, we had a lot of problems because it mixed up units, it misinterpreted content, some hallucination. However, this was relatively limited. And then one colleague of mine said it's very cloudy, the answer, the cloudiness, because we have different sources that have different information, and then it, yeah, gave a wide range of numbers, and we wanted to have these numbers that we can directly feed them into our models. So we have a lot of models that need data, need these inputs, and when it's not clear, the model can't do anything with this. Yeah, and contradicting results is a very big problem as well. So at the end, we had an analyst going through all this data again, checking the information. It took a lot of time. Yeah. Maybe it was a bit, we stretched the boundaries a bit too much to collect really single data points, which are hard to understand. But we keep working on this. And over the last 2 years, we got better and better results. But still, it requires a lot of work by analysts to check this data, to go through this, and then make this basically machine readable again. So that, for example, optimization research models can use this data. Maybe it's different experience here in the room, but yeah, it was a challenge for us. How can we improve the outputs? So maybe as suggestions, if others have similar problems, prompt engineering is something, and the process engineering. How do you get, in my example now, how do we get to the list of projects? How do we collect all the articles related to the projects, and then how we search through the articles? So also these processes, this process can improve a lot depending on how you control it. Yeah, pre-select sources. Maybe do you want to go only to original sources, or do you also take, when reporters already wrote about this, maybe AI wrote about the project, and then you're reading with AI this AI written article again. So it's a bit, it's making it tough to really get the original information out of these articles. Yeah, and then try also different LLMs. They all have strengths and weaknesses, and there's really big differences depending on the use case. So I can only recommend using different ones. And then we also realized they're getting better, obviously. If I would run the same questions on the LLMs today in comparison to historic ones, the information is much better. And also we heard about how they can learn from your old requests. This is also something that can be quite interesting. Okay, then one more use case. We use obviously Gen AI that supports us when writing reports, emails, and PowerPoint presentation and so on. I think that's the most common use case, and we also try to do this. The general experience with this, it's super fast, therefore it's great. I think we heard it in the last presentation. Yeah, it's impressive. You type in and you get it within seconds. It creates high quality language. So it's also really cool. It provides complete, structured, well-written reports. Yeah, and I think it can hardly be differentiated from human work. And it's also very strong in summarizing existing knowledge. In a sense, my son asked me during vacation if he can also ask questions to. We also used ChatGPT a lot when we were traveling to get information about cities and where to go, where the playgrounds are. And then he asked, he's 7-year-old, and he thought a lot about the question he could ask. He asked then, what's the number before infinity? And it's a really tough question, because there is no number before infinity, because infinity is a concept. And this explains again, these LLMs are very good in basically reading from old concepts, knowledge that exists, that's well described on the internet, can put information together and explains very well. And in different levels, it could give the mathematical answer, but could give also an answer for children, to a child, to understand what it actually means, infinity, and that this is not a number. It's really just something very far away. So this is the advantage. It's really great. And then there's, you can guess, and in some cases, Gen AI is not so good. It's often generic and inaccurate. And then the most important part for us, it struggles with content-specific nuances and factual accuracy. So it's still often an expert needed to go through this and check it. And then it struggles with data points. That's my opinion, with very good data points, the units and everything I just described before. And then it lacks the forward-looking view. It can only gives you some view forward, but most of the time looks at what exists. Yeah, and now the big question, what does a market intelligence company, ICIS is a market intelligence company, do with this stuff? And this is a great challenge. First of all, I think not using it would be a big mistake, because it makes us fast, it can help us, we would be not competitive anymore using it, not using it. But it also, we have the problem, our customers have limited amount of time. And again, someone in my team told me it takes me 1 hour to produce a 40-page, well-written report on a topic, but 2 hours to read it. And who is going to read all the reports? If we create them, we create one every day, nobody has time to read them. So we need to be very careful what we send to our customers. It needs to be very good, very precise, forward-looking, and this is our challenge at the moment. Where do we use it? Where should we not use it? And how do we create a forward-looking view? Because our customers are, for example, traders. They trade oil, they trade power markets. They don't care about the history. They would like to have the forward-looking view. They would like to understand what's happening in the future, not just getting a summary of the past. So we need to use these machine tools, but then also think about how can we combine our data, how can we use our models, to create a better, create better reports that people are still reading and not just thrown to the bin. And this comes together with storytelling. So we still see our role in storytelling, run models, feed the models with better data, and AI helps us a lot to produce good data that we can put into our models. So this is a bit our world where we struggle a lot. Where do we use it? Where we should not use it? How can we use the time of our customers in the best way? Now, last use case from my side, and I hope I can give some time back because the whole session is behind schedule. The biggest use case of Gen AI I see in programming, and I think we have seen this a lot already. In my team, I made a little survey of everyone who's programming and who's working. They say up to 50% productivity increase through AI in programming. And I think this is also very close to the number I showed in the beginning, that high-skilled workers can save up to 40% of their time by using technologies. And in programming, it's just super, super useful. Maybe I saw 3 stages. First stage is that the LLM replaces the searching, for example, the web, Stack Overflow. Colleague of mine said, since I use ChatGPT and then later also the co-pilots, I haven't opened Stack Overflow anymore. And you see this also found a study on the right. The traffic of Stack Overflow compared last year, this year, and it really reduced massively. I have to check the number. Yeah, more than 40% in the US, just about 40% in Europe. That's massive because people just don't go to these pages anymore. They just ask ChatGPT or use the co-pilots. Because it's quicker. You could say, is this a Kodak defect already? I don't know. I found this very interesting. Then the second stage is, and I think you all know about this, the Copilot directly supports in the IDE. So the integrated development environment where the people do their programming jobs. It suggests code snippets, it does some little programming, it's fixing errors, it does the documentation. Documentation is a very helpful thing. It understands what code we write, summarizes it, other people can understand it more easily, so I think that's very useful. And last but not least, the Copilot is also directly writing code. You need to be careful. Sometimes there's mistakes, so you still need to understand this. So don't just let it write everything, and it also need to be integrated into the existing code bases. We have a lot of code, and it need to be clean and nicely integrated. Need to use the existing functions. So it's still important to understand the code, but it can take over big parts in writing, and it's very fast with this, and often has better ideas how to write clean stuff. So really nice. I can already recommend using these tools, but I think everyone's already doing it. All right, maybe a little conclusion. I think use it wherever suits, but stay on top of your products and top of the results. Then the second one is focus on the outcome. As I said, I'm analyst. I don't care which tools I use with which methods. For me, most important is the output. The output need to be good. That's the key for me, nothing else. Because the way to the data I produce at the end can be replaced. I think that's it, And last but not least, number 3 is try everything out, try to push the boundaries. I think we also heard this in the last presentations. It's really important. With this, thanks a lot.